For decades, they used to peddle their wares on the streets of Singapore. Then, in the 1970s, along with the country's bigger development plan, Singapore's hawkers moved in to hawker centres. Now, hawker food and hawker centres have become part of Singaporeans' everyday life. But against the city's first world aspirations, a treasured heritage could be lost without a new generation of hawkers. Will hawker culture perish? Or will it be preserved and cherished? It's close to midnight. An hour ago, Tosang Wang served his last plate of fried Hokkien prawn mee. But his day is far from over. He will spend another 2 hours frying the chili that complements the noodle dish.
所以我就怕炒辣椒，很多工，明白吗？对不对？你看这么多工，又这么热，没办法，没有辣椒你要炒吗？只要你没有辣椒，顾客不喜欢嘛。买现在不可以，所以我要亲自做了，1个礼拜做1次，啊。
It's a routine he's kept at for 40 years. Since inheriting his father's business. Mr. To just turned 70. His father plied his trade on the streets in the 1950s and 60s. Until 1968, when he got a permanent store under the government's hawker resettlement program. It was in Tiong Bahru, one of Singapore's earliest public housing estates. He started out helping at the stall in his teens and ended up turning professional.
开始做炒的方法有一点困难，油也不可以太多，也不可以太少，它的火候也要抓准。我父亲啊指点我咯。 所以我慢慢在学啊。
His moves are well practiced, rhythmic, and synchronized. For 26 years, Mr. To has cooked up a storm at the ABC Brickworks Food Centre. His queue is long, sometimes endless. And so are his hours.
我3点多一开始做的时候没有休息啊，一直到收档，没有机会给你出来做的嘞。因为我这种是劳碌命。多少钱几包？
That's excluding preparation work before and after the stall's operating hours.
几年前我还穿那个布没有，啊，怕它倒下整个汤倒在里面去呀。
He wears the decades of toil on him.
鞋里面去啊，很烧的嘞，起泡啊，起那么大力的。 所以割着皮来补的嘞。
Mr. To's life and livelihood revolve around a single dish. He's raised 2 sons with it. But age is catching up with him. And he has no successor in sight.
还得不做，所以我跟我的那些顾客讲，我做到这边 gain over。以前我们那一代受教育不高，假如我不学一门手艺，以后你出来打工，能够薪水要多少？最多给你1000多块一万。所以我还不做，我也不勉强他，这种东西不可以勉强的。
I'm basically gonna make carrot cake, and then I'm gonna blend everything up together. I'm turning this into a porridge. This is weird even by my standards.
Chef Ming Dan turns Singapore's familiar hawker favorites into unfamiliar forms. His creations are part of an art installation with a dystopian theme.
To serve, all I did was dip the mylar bags into warm water. When it opens up a mylar bag, you just drink the porridge of cai tao kueh.
Carrot cake porridge. Chicken rice cake made with a meat alternative. And laksa rice krispies.
We were trying to imagine in the future what happens when time is of the essence and you can't have one uncle sweating into the same pan as he fries it. And eventually all the old guys who can cook this are going to die out. There's no one young going to take over. In 30, 40 years time, who knows? So maybe hawker centers are just sort of stalls and everyone just walks past, you know? Picks up your food and then you zao.
It's a hard solution to stomach, but one Singapore has to contend with, unless new hawkers rejuvenate the hawker trade. Enter new hawkers Dino and Angus.
因为我们祖母是在马来西亚做甜品生意啊，就是开店卖甜品啊，所以我们从小就跟他学习。
就觉得如果没有人继续做下去的话，就有点浪费那个手艺。
The cousins who hail from Malaysia recently gave up their corporate jobs, took up permanent residency in Singapore, and embarked on an entrepreneurial dream.
我是觉得趁年轻的时候就自己创业，对。 我们辞了工作大概4个月左右，就慢慢研究，再一遍又一遍把我们的从小学的那个甜品再做多一次，就是找回那个味道。
To appeal to the office crowd, they introduced bubble tea to their menu.
我们觉得说，如果是单单卖港式甜品的话，应该还不够竞争能力，所以我们特地去学了这个泡泡茶，因为泡泡茶算是时下最流行的一个茶。我们特地抽了1个多月特地去台湾学。
我们通常是11点开档的，晚上通常是9点会关店，9点左右吧。有时候吃的话，准备到来可能要11点、12点。
They stand out in a trade dominated by older people. The median age of Singapore's hawkers is 59.
小贩中心是算是大多数人3餐都会在这边解决。
我们会选择在 Maxwell 这个地方的话，是因为觉得这边不管是 office 的时间，或者是游客，都蛮多人潮。
They quickly learnt about the harsh realities of running a hawker stall.
因为租金算是最 killing part， 所以一开始的时候，我们第1个月投标的价格才2000多，我们从低慢慢投上去，才会得到我们这间店。
Despite the hurdles, the cousins are far from giving up.
因为我们现在刚开始嘛，所以我们就是尽量每一天都开。
当我们踏入这一行的时候，就已经是决定要做一世人，做到不能做的为止啊。
But they are a rare breed.
接受我的话，要这个味道。
Will the city lose more than just its hawker food? When the current generation of hawkers pull down their shutters. Oh Hyung-hui writes graphic novels. In his 2017 sci-fi story, a hawker dish saves the universe.
They are a race of alien cooks. So they go around the galaxy to be chefs and cooks. The idea behind is that the universe is running out of food, so they need to venture to new frontiers, to find new recipes. This guy, Law, he came to Earth, and kway chap is one of the recipes that they are eyeing. Because there's a lot of spare parts, so you eat the whole animal. There are many elements, aliens, deities, Chinese deities. I didn't want a story that is a bit too kind of realistic. I want it to be as outrageous as possible.
It's called Coalition of the Savory Spare Parts, set in 1982 at the old Airport Road Hawker Centre.
That's when the old Kallang Airport is still around. In the story, this hawker center is actually the exit where the aliens come to Earth. So there's actually a subway station on Earth.
To bring his ideas to life, Yong Hui collaborates with local comic artist Ko Hong Tang, who frequently depicts local Singapore culture in his work.
We're always talking about ideas. And somehow he thinks that I can write stories. So our first book came out in 2012, 10 Sticks and One Rice.
10 Sticks and One Rice alludes to satay, a dish of skewered meat grilled to perfection. And the story revolves around hawkers.
My parents, they are hawkers also. So I grew up knowing hawker centers, all this. So it's something quite close to what I would like to write about.
The book is based loosely on Yong Hui's youth in the 1980s and 90s.
I started helping out with my parents when I was primary 2, all the way to NS. I don't really recall a lot of good memories in a sense. I mean, it's just going to help or busy, clearing plates, serving customers. When I was young, I remember reading about NWC recommendations for workers for annual salary increase. And then yet at the same time, when hawkers wants to increase the price of coffee by 5 cents, you get a lot of complaints. And to me, it seems a bit unfair. They deserve to be paid more.
Growing up, Yong Hui witnessed his parents' hardship.
I remember that was the one time I saw my dad crying. All the plates were gone, everything was gone. Because the store was illegal, so my dad rented a store in the same coffee shop, but indoor now. And so the business is no longer that good because nobody knew that there was a satay store inside.
His bleak childhood memories didn't lessen his fascination with hawkers. It's a recurring theme in his books.
Oh, this is the Thunder God's hammer.
Okay.
Make it something like that.
You want to do something about the table numbers? Or there's actually a...
No, man.
Their imagination may stretch far beyond the modest hawker centre. But it tells the story of ordinary people in their everyday lives.
We have hawkers. This is what we eat mostly. It's not something we go to eat once a while, right? This is our main food.
By the 1820s, 1830s, there is evidence that hawkers were here already. Food is very much a part of Singapore's history because it was literally there from the very beginning. So it connects Singaporeans to a past that they didn't experience, but something that they've heard about. Can I have some fried bihun, please? If you were to take this out of our lives, there would be a big gap there. You would miss a whole lot of things that connect you to your history, to your tradition, to your culture. It's part of our identity, national identity, ethnic identity.
You want chili?
Yeah, I'll have chili, please. And
Professor Vinita Sinha heads the sociology department at the National University of Singapore.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. See you. Food itself, it's about the taste, it's about how it can evoke certain memories, it can trigger connections to the past and things like that.
She remembers her earliest visits to the hawker centres in Singapore. The year was 1973, when hawker centres just made their way into public housing estates. She was 11 and newly arrived in Singapore with her father from India.
It was a real culture shock, I would say, for me. Those were early days for the establishment of hawker centres in Singapore. They were not like this, but just the concept of cooked food being sold outside, you know, like seeing chicken rice stalls with the chickens hanging and the duck hanging, it was quite alien. I used to walk through the hawker centre every day. You know, I would have kway teow goreng from one of the stalls there for 80 cents, right? And we never cook kway teow goreng at home. So not only did I get introduced to foods of other ethnic groups, I would say I got introduced to foods of my own ethnic group, in a sense. This is a multicultural space where you get, you know, Chinese food sitting alongside Malay food, sitting alongside Western food, alongside Indian foods.
அது எல்லா வேறு மக்கள் சாப்பிடுவாங்க. சைனீஸ்லேருந்து நாயிலேருந்து சின்ன எல்லாம் மீ கோரிங் போட்டுனா சைனீஸ் தான். ரொட்டி பேட்டா மீ கோரிங் போனால் சைனீஸ். செகண்ட் மலாய்க்காரங்க, மூணாவது இந்தியன்ஸ்.
மஞ்சள் இறைச்சி இல்லாமல் சாப்பிட $8.
Dean and his wife Nisha run a local Indian Muslim food store at Yishun Park Hawker Centre.
ஒரு சைனீஸ் வந்துட்டேன்டா கொஞ்சம் பாசாவாக கேட்பாங்க. ரொம்ப காரிங்க போடாதங்க வாங்க. அதே மாதிரி நான் போட்டு கொடுப்பேன். அதே மாதிரி இந்தியன்ஸ் வந்துட்டேன்னா எனக்கு எல்லாம் காரிங்க போட்டு கொடு.
Dean is no greenhorn in the kitchen. He had been frying mee goreng for 18 years before carving out his own business 2 years ago.
அதனால வந்து மீ கோரிங்கில் இது வரைக்கும் ஈஷன் ஹாக்கர் சென்டர்னு சொன்னால் டீன் தான். ஈஷன் டீன் சொன்னால் எல்லாத்துக்கும் தெரிகிற மாதிரி நான் பேர் வாங்கியிருக்கேன். அதுதான் அதோட மீ கோரிங்கோட டேஸ்ட்.
Dean's ingredients for success: culinary skills, secret sauces, and a dose of good service.
ஆமாம், அது வேணா இது வேணா கஸ்டமர் சொல்லுவாங்க அப்படிங்கிறது இதெல்லாம் எனக்கு நான் முதலாளியாக நினச்சி யார்ட்டையும் பழக மாட்டேன். என்னோட ஒப்பஸ்ட்டோட நான் முதலாளி அழைச்சி பழக மாட்டேன். என்னோட கஸ்டமர் அவங்க எல்லாம் சொந்தக்காரவங்க.
Their customers are more than just customers. They are friends who even turn up for their kid's birthday party.
My customers, they came down, you know, join in the party, like sing for them. I didn't expect them to actually join on my party. Yeah. I was like so blessed that they joined in our party on that day.
you look around in a hawker center, you find people of all different backgrounds coming, and I think it really bridges our different identities, and we are able to kind of rise above our class differences or our ethnic differences, even to some extent our religious differences.
A reflection of its multicultural society through the hawker centre and hawker food. That's what Singapore hopes UNESCO formally recognises as intangible cultural heritage.
It's going to give global visibility to hawker culture in Singapore. Hawker culture is also a very important part of heritage tourism. It signals certain things about Singapore to outsiders. It signals the importance of food to Singapore as well.
But it was not too long ago when hawker centres were in their twilight. Several were demolished, none built.
That happened in the late 80s to all the way to the 90s. And that sort of coincided with the rise of coffee shops. The only difference is that coffee shops is private entity. And so the rental charges to the individual store owner is subjected to market movement. In the hawker center, the government is able to regulate rental of each of the stalls and regulate food inflation prices because of that.
As the cost of living rose, food prices climbed too. And soon, people were demanding for more affordable hawker food again.
Hawker food, it's the backbone of the food landscape in Singapore. Hawker food is the most affordable. So it is a very attractive first option for Singaporeans.
With the backlash, a new wave of hawker centres was pipelined after a hiatus of 26 years.
In a high-cost city, the majority of the people, they need to go to some place where they can eat good food and affordable prices, where they can meet family and friends. And the answer is the hawker centre. We don't have enough of them.
In 2015, the Singapore government tasked social enterprises to manage some of its hawker centres. Will the new model work? And will it transform hawker culture as we know it?
If there's something unique about Singapore, it's really our food culture. It's really a blending of who we are as Singaporeans, our multi-religious, our multi-racial society, and that represents who we are.
Here we're selling $1 ice chocolate.
Edward Chia runs live music venues.
Okay, thank you so much.
Recently, he's also starting to shake up the hawker scene. The Yishun Park Food Centre is his latest stage.
In 2016, we had the opportunity to operate a food park. We said, why not let's also take our resources and our efforts to actually support Singapore culinary talents. And when you talk about Singapore culinary talents, you have to look at hawkerpreneurs as well.
The local environment agency used to manage all hawker centres. But then the government launched a new plan in 2015. Have the private sector run some of them.
The private sector can come in with other ideas. So we will come in and say, hey, this is things that we usually run at other sites. Perhaps some of the components can be trialed at a hawker centre.
The social entrepreneur is putting his money where his mouth is. With the largest annual festival yet, the $1 Carnival.
We organize the entire festival. We run the marketing, we run the free bus shuttle services. But the objective is really about showcasing our entrepreneurs and their wonderful, delicious food.
But not everyone is thrilled with the new model.
They had stipulated times when the hawkers need to open, how many days they need to open. In my point of view, the hawker stalls rental must be kept really cheap and hawkers given the freedom to do whatever they want.
We need to ensure that there's enough stalls open so that the center is vibrant. There is also things like trade return rates. So those are some of the key performance indicators that we work towards. We run incubation programs. We try to our very best to lower certain costs. We actually even sponsor basic equipment to help young hawkers actually start out in this hawkerpreneur journey.
Edward's professionalizing the hawker trade and giving it an update.
People generally are now looking for more things within a shorter span of time. And I think the infrastructure has to provide those various options. We should not be building hawker centers that still look like hawker centers.
Hawker centers were first built in the 1970s. 114 are still standing.
When we start our massive HDB building exercise in the late 70s, early 80s, you see massive redevelopment of HDB estates. And when you have that, when you're putting a lot of people into one estate, you need to solve their daily needs issue, right? There's a kind of ecosystem of goods, services being provided at the precinct level. The story of hawker center cannot be divorced from the story of HDB estates. Let's walk in and then you will see, just observe the differences of architecture out there. Look at this.
Yeo Kung Shua is an architectural historian with a keen interest in Singapore architecture. From its temples to hawker centers.
Every decade has some changes in the architectural design. So from the 1960s, we can see that it's essentially a single-story building, simple structures, usually pitched roof, and the stalls are arranged in very linear manner. Moving on to the 1980s, that also coincides with the massive building of new estates, and the flat roof came to be more prevalent in the structures. What are the changes that have done to the building over time? This is before
it was a time when Singapore was coming of age as a freshly minted nation.
a wall of shop houses. There's a abutting line. At that time, hawker centers were designed by HDB in-house architects. The main concern was actually cost. If they keep the construction cost to be affordable and efficient, it will reflect in the rentals rates to the hawkers and the hawkers themselves, and the food is a manner to, in a way, control price inflation.
The story of the hawker centre offers a glimpse of Singapore's development over the past 5 decades, with the architecture reflecting a nation's evolving concerns and aspirations.
At one time, we have hawker centres that try to reflect the garden city idea, right? We call them almost like pavilions in the garden.
Today, over at Tosang Wang, a new mega sports and social facility is underway.
Part of the important thing in relation to this is the
This community complex will have plenty of facilities, but food is the only common denominator. And so within architect Sia Chi Wang's plan is a hawker centre.
It was clearly identified as one of the very important social nodes. So hence, it is also strategically located at the former arrival corner of the site. We were thinking, how do we kind of create an idea of store and seat layout that best maximize the surrounding view and all the greenery that's available for us. The idea of the hexagonal geometry allows more dimensions of the entire store layout to respond and see the surrounding greeneries that we have. We create the clusters of store as the core, and then around this core is where the sittings are laid. The third layer in relation to that is circulation space and immediate greenery.
When completed, the food centre will fit over 40 stalls and sit 700 people.
the design of appropriate volume of space that facilitates good cross-ventilation is key. And of course with that, how elements like natural light can be harnessed to make sure that the space is well lit. Comfortable setting is one of the top priorities. Second will be to ensure that the space is easily accessed by users of all abilities, whether it's seniors or families with prams and child.
And their recently completed hawker centre at the mega Ao Tampines Hub complex gives an indication of what new age hawker centres will look like.
Its fundamental role is really that of a social condenser, the gathering space of the community to come together. It needs to be porous and open, hence something inclusive. It's not just about serving its core function, but it inspires users when they come to a space. There is an intangible quality within that many architects strive to achieve.
While the city's architects turn bold visions into reality, their peers in training are working to refresh current models of hawker centres.
We wanted to create something that interacts more closely with the ground because that's something that's not very often seen in Singapore. Show like how the depth kind of indicates the swimming pool.
Chloe and Epin came up with the Punggol Channel, a hawker centre designed with spaces for community farms and water channels.
Then the people coming out of MRT can kind of...
As you're eating in the hawker centre, it will actually be along this reservoir over here. So you're sitting at the bank, and then you're sort of like looking at how your food is grown and then where the food comes from.
Carlos Bannon oversees this project. The architect moved to Singapore from Spain 5 years ago. He remembers his first visit to the hawker centre vividly.
I remember the atmosphere, the vibes, how festive the space is. I love the courtyard space because it's kind of a very congregational space. And then I was looking more closely on the hawker centers that are more in the different neighborhoods. And I was really attracted by, you know, at the end, the rich culture in food, the rich culture in also the way that society is connected through food.
Carlos's students are designing their hawker centre around an actual site of what will someday become a mixed development complex.
So we want to create a community farming zone where the residents in Punggol can come together, kind of grow their own food and enjoy it in the hawker centre below. In Singapore, we get lots of rain, it's very humid, so we want to collect the rainwater through the roof system and bring it together to the reservoirs here. So this can be used to naturally irrigate the farms in the area.
Instead of only a community dining room, actually a community living room.
That project brings a few questions that are very relevant, which is, one, how to make the designs that we have in Singapore more self-sustainable, but also to be more productive. So the idea is to create an ecosystem of things that happens around the hawker centers so that everything is well articulated and well connected.
By coming to a hawker centre, you encounter, the sounds, there's certain ambience noise, the people talking, the people ordering food, the sound of people cooking, the smell of food, the smell of fumes, right? All this creates a certain atmosphere in the hawker centre.
Once a roof to house street hawkers, now it's a stage where everyday life plays out. But will the evolution of hawker centres be enough to preserve Singapore's hawker culture?
We need to pay particular attention on at least for the next 5 years. If hawkers are unable to sustain, then I think our food culture, our hawker culture is really endangered.
I think it's easy to preserve the shell, but we need to preserve the software or the soul.
I believe that the appearance of food is very important to you. The because when you eat, you don't only eat with your mouth, you eat with your eyes as well. So I thought, why not a zi cha bowl? We got 90 eggs.
Debbie Yam's a fourth-generation hawker.
米粉8块啦，吃的哦。
She sells a wide range of wok-fried Chinese dishes, cooked to order, known as zita.
For over 40 years, we have only opened for dinner. But since we are located in this prime CBD area, I thought that it's a very good opportunity for us to try out the lunch crowd.
And she's given good old classic dishes a modern twist.
You are very used to having your hor fun and your fried rice in the plate by all the zi cha stores. But right now we have it in bowls and we add certain touches to it like an onsen egg or battered enoki to it so that it suits the modern palate a little bit more.
But for Gladwin and Raphael, it's back to basics. These recent culinary school graduates decided to keep it strictly traditional, with a home recipe for prawn noodles.
There's no bells and whistles in it, and we do everything from scratch, including the prawn stock, where we fry all our prawn shells and the prawn heads, and we do not add a single drop of dark soy sauce. The color is totally natural from the frying process. If you stop stirring, it can burn.
米粉 one soup, one dry.
With their degrees from the Culinary Institute of America, these boys would have had an easy toe into top-flight culinary jobs.
找你6块，谢谢。
Instead, Gladwin and Raphael chose to be hawkers.
Right after internship especially, it was a wake-up call for us that we learned to cherish the hawker industry and the hawker trade very dearly to us.
Over time, you realize that we don't need to be the cream of the crop. We just want to know our local food.
They are part of a new wave of young hawkers.
Here you go.
Well-educated, resourceful, and determined to tough it out in the industry.
What do you want to get?
Hello. They are loyal supporters. Office lunch only starts from 12, so they probably have a very short time frame, and during that period is also our very busy period. In order to hasten the whole process, I introduced this pre-order pamphlet. They come and they collect. They don't have to queue up during the peak hours. 2 mix hor fun, 1 ha cheong gai, pick up at 11 o'clock.
The new school hawker then receives orders through text.
有哈cheong gai 9块的。 Initially, there was not much traffic for us because probably when they see young people cooking, they are quite fearful to try. Now, after some exposure, and I believe a lot of return customers actually can vouch for our food. 風車粉嚟㗎。
Debbie didn't always possess such nifty hawker chops. It all changed when her grand aunt wanted to sell the stall.
At that point of time, I felt a sense of loss because I think the first thing that came to my mind was, where am I going to get such food when I come back to Singapore?
It was 2017. Debbie returned home from her New Zealand work holiday, ready to help out with anything, as long as she could keep the stall.
The very first dish I learned to cook was actually fish head noodles, because after all, it's our signature, right? You know how the old people will actually teach you? It's very easy one. You just on the wok, throw ginger, throw oil, and then throw the fish head, and then just cook. And then when I try it, it always comes out a different product. For zi cha, there is no standard SOP. It's a lot of skills and a lot of experience.
You want me dry, huh? Yeah. You want the pai kusia one? No. Or prawns, huh? Okay.
There's many hawkers that provide artisanal food that are made by hand. However, hawker center has become very price sensitive. Majority were not willing to shell out the extra for something done by hand.
Singaporeans don't value skills, they value ingredients. Skills are free. So someone frying char kway teow, that's no value. The frying is no value. You put in a few more prawns, and you can charge me $20. I don't complain, right? Even though the prawns don't really cost that much. But if you just fry, and then give me the char kway teow.
Hawker food prices in Singapore aren't that elastic. Raphael and Gladwin found out the hard way when they tried selling fusion Japanese food at the hawker center, fresh out of school.
When we increased the prices, we lost about 30% of our customers immediately. The rental that I am paying as a new hawker is close to, I would say, like 8 times, 7 times more than first generation hawkers. I can't price my food as cheaply as them.
Prawn and Me is their second venture. After a turn in their business philosophy,
we made the decision to lower our profit margin by a lot.
Quite a bit, yeah.
Quite a bit. I would say we earn less than 10% above. And that is after calculating, bringing in all the other costs.
A lot of this labor is hidden. We just see the front line of the stalls where the food has already been prepared, but there's a lot of backroom work that goes on which we don't see.
hawker business is tough business. But at Nasi Lemak Ayam Taliwang, Pooty and Norman are playing the long game.
We decided that to make it a success, we have to go all in. See? No plan B, just one plan and then make it a success.
The husband and wife team run their stall like a corporation. Their staff put on uniforms and enjoy welfare benefits, like company employees.
We are working towards giving a formal pay system to our staff. CPF is an integral part of a payment system in Singapore, so we want to give that benefit to them also. We can fry many also, and because it's faster, we can cook when it's ordered, you see, so it's fresher. Rather than we cook a bunch of eggs and then leave it at the display, it gets cold, you see.
With limitations in time, space, and manpower, they have turned to innovation for help. Like their trusty egg griddle and pressure cooker.
And it's an expensive investment, but something that's worth it. We save a lot of time, we save a lot of effort.
Yang sengkang kemarin berarti nasinya oke kan? Sama aja kan?
They began with a small dream, to own their own food business. Now they have 2 stores and a bigger dream.
We have a simple SOP booklet that we offer to our staff, whereby they can simply read, let's say, the ingredients they need to put to the rice or to the sambal. So this allows us to have in mind expansion plans without worrying about quality. Our wish or our dream is to be the neighborhood nasi lemak. Our wish is to open one in every neighborhood. Yang pegang dah siap.
Streamlining processes is a step towards their ambition. But for some, innovation helps to keep the brand alive.
就是把那个面放进去，然后按下钮，它就直接下去了，啊，它就可以自己煮啊，然后会自动上来，时间准准的调到。
From a pushcart in the streets to a stall at a center, Gigi Wonton Noodle Specialist has witnessed the passage of time since 1965. Sisters Kristen and Jill are third-generation hawkers. They recently renovated their stall.
煮面机是自动的，炸鸡也是自动，时间调得准。今年我才activate 我的收音机，不会有差错咯 ，consistent and accurate 啦，这样我的手不会痛啊。因为你煮面的时候，你的手会痛呢，你要用手，所以会痛。
3包5块半的，连11包是10块半。
They started thinking about automation 8 years ago.
一直在实验，有给人家笑，给人家讲的，真的，人家会，
因为老一辈不接受那些新的科技，他说，哎，会不会没有那种味道，手势的味道出来？
我的想法要做这个自动化的话，我的味道不可以变，所以我就一直在跟我妈，我们3个人一直在研究，煮面也是要保留那个cuteness。保留那个出来的那个面的质量，炸东西出来也是时间要抓得很准。我想用科技来保留传统。
One of the reasons that we are worried about the future of hawker food is because we don't see younger people coming into the trade and coming into the profession, and that's partly because they're looking at it as a business venture, like am I going to be able to make a living doing this? And the answer is no, right? I don't think we've made the business of becoming a hawker attractive enough for young Singaporeans to take this up as a path.
In order to get more hawkers to come into the hawker trade, we need to show them that if they do a good job, we are willing to pay for it. I think that's fair.
The Singapore government guns for worldwide recognition of hawker culture, just as a new generation stakes its future to preserve a tradition and infuse new ideas into old ways. But beyond the much-welcomed endorsement, it's the city's people who have to decide if hawker culture is worth keeping.